Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
I will not be handed a rod with a fish already on it. I hate that. God, I hate that.
If I were on a sinking boat and I had a great white on the starboard side and I had a mako on the port side, I would jump off the side of the great white.
Did you ever try and catch any of the fish in your fish tank when you were a kid?
You can't flush it because it would be like flushing a metal porcupine. You can run it over with a truck and it'll be fine. Good morning, degenerate anglers, and welcome to Bent, the fishing podcast that just wants you to go to the end of the pulpit so you can give the dink walleye it just caught a little more scale. I'm Joe Cermelli.
And I'm Hayden Samek. And I have a sneaking suspicion, I guess, of what's about to happen.
Well, look, you kind of set yourself up for it a few weeks ago when I said I'm not talking about bull trout and I'm talking about sharking. And in what was perhaps a moment of weakness for you on the show, you said you didn't know what I was talking about. That is what you said at the time.
Yeah, no, I did say that. And yes, following that episode, I actually, there were like 4 or 5 folks who like lit me up on the old Insta Slam. Like just giving me shit for not instantly recognizing that was from, it was the bull trout thing that threw me off. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You're
right.
And I defended myself and let everyone know that I have, in fact, I've seen Jaws.
Well, I know.
I
know
like
that
Jaws.
you did that.
It's a good movie.
But I know you
and
did
Jaws
that. But it
4 is my favorite.
Oh God, that's terrible. You did jump on there and defend yourself and say I have seen it, but it wasn't good enough, was it?
No. And you're an asshole. There was one guy that said that we need to have a Jaws quiz or something on Ben to test my knowledge. And I mean, we talked a little bit earlier, but I think that's where this is. You asked me a question that was very like niche Jaws, and I was like, shit, he's lining up a quiz.
I absolutely am. And that one guy specifically was at Money Mustache. And I don't need more than one listener comment to get me to create a Jaws quiz. And I think that this is important, man, right? Your reputation is a bit on the line. And I'm not saying you haven't seen Jaws, but around here, like, you don't just see Jaws, like, you absorb it. You make life decisions around its teachings. It becomes a part of you. So we're gonna see, thanks to Money Mustache, how well you really know Jaws.
Fine. Fine. Thanks, Money Mustache. What do I win if I like say I hit it out of the park? What do I win?
If you get them all right, all right. I will send you a selection of hard baits from our glorious sponsors, 13 Fishing, including one of their Loco special jerk baits that I added a hint of customization to. How about that?
You know, I have pretty much all of 13 stuff. I want a Jaws inspired articulated streamer.
Deal.
That's what I
can
want.
Come up with that.
And one more thing, getting them all right is a high bar. I need like some leeway. Like what is like the passing grade here? What is my C+?
I would say so. All right. So here's what I've done. Mm-hmm. I've devised 4 questions. And they're ranging in degree of difficulty. Will start easy and get harder. And I would like to say, first of all, I want you to succeed. I want you to ace this. But so you know, there's no inside baseball here. They're not like things that like only like the highest caliber Jaws freak would know happen behind the scenes or anything like that. Like these can all be answered simply by watching the film and paying attention. And I would say, I don't know, man, it's only 4 questions, 3 out of 4.
Okay.
Give you one fail.
Yep, that seems
Is that
reasonable.
fair?
Yep, that seems reasonable.
Okay. All right. Okay. So here we go. Folks at home, please play along. Oh God, I'm enjoying this so much. This was so fun. All right. Question number 1. And also, I'm not giving you multiple choice because that might jog your memory or you might just guess. And that's not proof positive that you know the answer to these questions. So, no, you know, maybe take a wild stab if you don't know one. Question number 1. Tell me, on which naval warship did Quint serve during World War II?
Okay, it was the one that went down by sharks. And that's the origin of his hatred. Or it didn't go down by sharks, but it was the one, I think it was in the Pacific theater.
Japanese sub slammed 2 torpedoes into its side. 1,100 men went in the water.
Yeah, I know. I remember it.
Shit. I wish the people could see you on the computer right now. Like, he is legit agonizing. There's a bead of sweat. I guess I could give you partial credit.
I remember it was in the Pacific theater. I remember like that. I forget what the ship is called. What is the ship called? Give me a 50%.
US 50%?
Yeah, give me a 50% on that one. So like if I half-ass another one.
Okay, I'll give you 50%. It was the USS Indianapolis.
Oh, shit.
See?
I wish I just knew my naval history better, man. I remembered the event. I couldn't recall like the name. All right, next question.
Oh, that was the easy one. All right. How much was Quint charging the mayor to catch and kill the shark?
$10,000.
Oh, you got that one. Good on you. That is correct. He'd find it for 3.
Kill it.
Catch it and kill it for 10.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Doing good. All right. What specific material did Quint use as a bite leader in his shark rigs?
That would be the question, man. Piano wire.
That's correct.
Yep.
Was that a guess?
No, I remembered it. I remembered it being like something obscure, and then I thought, what was like the only thing that would be obscure and that could also be used as a leader? And I thought piano wire.
So there's talk about inside baseball. There's a deleted scene where they show him buying spools of it in the local music shop that got cut, but even on the boat, he gives Hooper a hard time when Hooper says it was a stingray, and he says, "Stingray bit through that piano wire." So it is mentioned in the film. Piano wire is correct, and serious shark guys after the fact were like, "That's the dumbest thing. Piano wire sucked." Like that was just completely for drama and spice. Nobody ever really used piano wire. Okay, last one. You're doing good. I like it. In the scene where Hooper and Brody are dissecting the tiger shark that they thought was the man-eater, Hooper pulls a license plate from its stomach. What state is it from?
Okay, well... Amity's supposed to be in Massachusetts, right?
Correct.
But I don't think it would be from Massachusetts.
You remember where they said it swam up from? No.
Well,
I'll
New
give
York.
You one
New
hint.
York. I'm saying New York. I don't know.
Okay, it was Louisiana. Sportsman's paradise.
Oh, it's a tiger shark, not a white shark.
It's a tiger shark. They said probably swam up from the Gulf Stream from southern waters. And you can buy those license plates online. It's very cool. That wasn't bad though, dude. That wasn't bad. I'm more depressed about the Indianapolis than the license plate. That was a hard one. You got to really be paying attention to know the license plate.
Yeah,
but that was pretty good.
Yeah. Can I get like a bonus question? I really want this streamer.
I will tell you what. I will tie you the streamer.
Aw.
Anyway, just for being a good sport and playing along.
Oh, thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. That was pretty fun, man.
All I'm going to do is cut some yellow foam into the shape of a barrel and super glue it to a hook. So it will only take a hot minute.
As long as it's articulated, I don't care. You know, actually, wait, that would be the ultimate. You tie a bunch of little barrels onto hook shanks and articulate like the whole thing, make it the chain of barrels.
Oh, man, you're going to get me in trouble because now people are going to be like, you have to do that, and then I'm going to have to spend time doing that. Anyway, that was fun. Money Mustache, there you go. Okay, he was 50%, 75% if we give him a little bit for the first one. But hell, look, why not keep the fun and the trivia going? This all rolls beautifully into a trivia segment I recorded a while back, pre-Hayden times, that's okay, with our good buddy and mako angler extraordinaire Conway Bowman. And like Jaws, these questions marry shark fact with Hollywood shark fiction.
Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now the whole team here.
Joining me today for trivia, my old buddy Conway Bowman is back. What's going on, man? How are you?
Joe, I'm doing well, man. Hanging in there.
Excellent, excellent. So just to recap, you are a pioneer fly fishing for mako sharks, guided all over the world, written all kinds of books, been in all kinds of TV shows. And the first time I had you on, we did Covering Water. We did the rapid fire thing and really got to know who you were. We learned that you don't like largemouth bass, that you love Bodie and Point Break, and are a big. You took Black Flag over Social Distortion, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah,
and I admire that. So we're gonna do regular trivia today. So this is multiple choice, right? Not rapid fire. You can take all the time that you need, sort of barroom style. Just so you know, that there's nothing to. You can lose some dignity, but you win nothing. I have no prize for you if you ace both of these.
Okay,
but. I think I really try to like tailor these questions to my guests, you know, like really drill down on who you are. So hopefully I did a good job here. So are you ready to play?
Yes.
Trivia?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. We'll do 2 questions today. Here comes number 1. Short fin mako sharks are one of the fastest sharks in the ocean. As you know, they can also be very aggressive, which has led people to wonder how dangerous they are to humans. The International Shark Attack File, or ISAF, is kept up to date by the Florida Museum. So the question is, between the years of 1580 and 2017, how many unprovoked mako attacks on humans does ISAF have on file? Keep in mind, we're not talking about Marty and Artie getting bit, bringing one into the boat off Montauk. These are completely unprovoked attacks. Is it A, 3, B, 10, C, 1, or D, 6?
3.
The answer is actually 10.
Ooh.
Now, I question the accuracy of those distant records. They say this is accurate going back to the late 1500s, but according to the ISAF, 10 people have had unprovoked attacks by makos in a whopping 437 years. So actually, like they're even though they're mean-looking bastards, they're one of the least dangerous sharks to humans.
Well, that's really interesting. I think because they inhabit deeper water. Believe me, if a mako shark inhabited shallower water,
right,
they would be
right. They're just really not where people are.
Right,
is part of the deal. They're an open water fish.
To be honest with you, if I were on a sinking boat and I had a great white on the starboard side and I had a mako on the port side and they were of equal size, I would jump off the side of the great white, hands down.
Wow.
Just because.
Good to know. Because that was a hot tip right there if you're ever in that
mako
situation.
Sharks are so crazy, unpredictable, goofy. They are like, they're scary.
Okay, well, speaking of having a shark on the starboard side, we'll go on to our next question here. We'll keep up with our shark theme. Ready for this one?
Yeah.
In the classic 1990 rom-com, Joe versus the Volcano, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan do a little trolling off the sailboat that's taking them to the island of Waponi Woo, where you might recall the natives drank nothing but orange soda. Anyway, Hanks only catches one fish during that trolling session, and it's a shark. Which kind of shark was it? A, a great white, B, a tiger shark, C, a black tip, D, a hammerhead.
Hammerhead.
Did you get? Is that a guess, or do you know that?
That's a guess.
That's correct. That's correct.
Because that's so Hollywood, because it looks cool. It's a hammerhead.
Well, I'm getting the impression you're not too familiar with Joe versus the Volcano,
I've never
which many
seen it.
people are not. Oh, that's a shame. It's not really, because it's a shitty movie, but I think it's a shame. Because I was going to say, bonus question, what does the hammerhead shark do when Hanks hooks it? You wouldn't know that, but it bends its eyes inward to look right at him, and it roars, which is very, very Hollywood.
Wow.
Anyway, dude, no, so that's, you're 1 for 2. You're 1 for 2. You just got lucky on Joe versus the Volcano. Your homework next time we talk is you have to see that movie and watch all the bonus features if there are any on the Blu-ray.
Tonight, I'll be watching with the kids.
Are you going to tell me that I have to watch Joe versus the Volcano now?
I mean, you should, right? It's no Turner and Hooch, but I do highly recommend it. But no. Knowing Joe versus the Volcano inside and out is not a requirement to be my friend. So it's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to rent it at Blockbuster.
I don't want to be your friend, man. I don't want to be your friend. At least not for the next 20 to 25 minutes while I'm kicking your ass in that weekly competition we like to call Fish News. Fish News!
That escalated quickly.
So before we get all newsy, guess what? We are happy to inform you, in case you haven't figured it out already, that there is now a line of new bent merchandise in the Meat Eater store.
Woo!
Yes, sir. We've been getting asked about that since about a week after this podcast first launched. But anyway, it's finally here. So what have we got? We've got the Degenerate Angler hoodie with the bent logo over the back shoulder, which I find that to be like very Boston hardcore. I love the placement of the logo on the back shoulder. We've got Degenerate Angler t-shirts, and we also have a fresh design courtesy of noted fish tattoo artist Drew Wilson.
Nice.
That I'm pretty pumped about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really captures what Ben is all about, I'd say. You know, it's a smallmouth, and in its mouth is a broken off streamer and a popper and a live hellgrammite.
Yeah. Yeah, because like we're kind of like, we don't give a shit how you fish. That's what we're all about here. Like, all are welcome. Peace, love, and harmony. If you throw flies, poppers, and live bait all on the same day, that's totally cool with us. So that design from Drew sort of captures the bent ethos, I would say.
I agree. And hey, Joe, before we move on here, man.
Yeah,
we got to kind of address something. This is sort of serious. At Ben here, like, we like to joke around, and I've realized recently that we've crossed the line with something that we've said.
You're making me extremely nervous because I could think of like 10 things in the last 3 episodes.
Well, we at Ben continuously joke about how unfun walleye are to catch, and I gotta say, Joe, I was totally.
Oh, don't apologize
wrong.
for that. They don't fight. That's the big apology?
Dude,
bullshit. I stand by
I want to apologize to Seth and Chester in particular because, man, I was out on the ice the other day, and Joe, I caught my first walleye ever through the ice. Congratulations.
And you'll never forget it? Your arm still hurt?
Honestly, man, I was kind of delighted, man. So first off,
it's ridiculous.
First off, I mean, I know that may surprise people that I've never caught a walleye. I think that there are a lot of fish that, people would expect folks to catch and like are just like kind of like a species that just kind of evades them for like one reason or another. Maybe it was like a lack of interest in going out for. Maybe it was something that you've tried a couple times.
Other more interesting fish swimming in the same waters that they swim in.
What's a fish, Joe? Actually, this would be a good question for our listeners. What is a fish that it seems like everybody but you has caught? Well, like a fish that you would be expected to catch, but for whatever reason have not. Like maybe like a catfish, like a flathead or something like that. Maybe somebody would expect you to have caught, I don't know, pike or something. Do you have one of those?
Man, the one that comes to mind, people are always surprised that I've never caught a burbot.
I recently saw my first burbot being caught 2 days ago with my buddy Sam Lundgren. You never caught a burbot?
No, I've just never been on the ice where they are. Northern Michigan, I've had some invites. I just haven't gotten there. But enough about me. I want to hear more quickly about why this walleye was so memorable and why you're apologizing. Because every time I've caught a walleye through the ice, even a big one, right? Were you using a flasher?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So that's exciting. You see him on the flash, you're like, oh, there he is. Boom, got him. And before you can even say got him, his head is coming up through the ice every time I do it.
Well,
it's like, that's done.
Yeah. I mean, to me, as a lot of things in fishing tend to be, this was the more of a realization of a long time goal. When I first got into ice fishing, like as a kid, it was on a lake called Lake Wallenpaupack in Pennsylvania. And I remember when we were going to visit this lake, my dad told me that there were walleye in this lake. And up until then, I'd primarily fished for like, trout and bass and like sunfish and just shit like that, because that's what was accessible in most of the bodies of water that we had gone to. Up until this point in time, I had never like gone to like a species sort of destination. You know what I mean? Like I'd never like gone somewhere with like the promise of, oh, by the way, there's something that you don't normally come in contact with swimming around on the bottom. So we had gotten into ice fishing that year, and the first goal that I ever had ice fishing was like, oh, I'm going to set all these tip ups and I'm going to catch a walleye. I was like 11, 10 years old. And, I just never did it. And I ended up not ice fishing very much more because it doesn't seem like we get that much ice in Pennsylvania, as of late anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
And so pulling a walleye through the ice was like 10-year-old me was real excited about it. And
did you catch this one on a tip up or did you jig it?
No, I jigged it. I jigged it with a 13 flashbang, no less.
There you go. Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, we got a bunch of pictures of it. Yeah, man.
Because I'm no walleye ice expert, but all the walleye ice guys that I've hung out with, they're like tip ups isn't the way to go for walleyes.
No,
like you got to tease them, you got to make them want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and another like kind of like unique challenge out here is that we can't use live bait in the form of shiners or anything like that. So basically, all your tip ups are dead sticks. I mean, we do like night crawlers for trout, which like move around a little bit, but it's not like the same as having a shiner on there. But anyhow, I really issue that apology is more of a way to kind of segue into talking about my first walleye, and that was a pretty great experience. And I think my attitude is going to change on them. I kind of do see the appeal of the walleye, particularly when you eat them, dude. Holy crap. That is a good eating fish. Anybody who said walleye through the ice are like the best eating fish, man, I think you're probably right. Anyhow.
Any freshwater fish through the ice is better eating. I'll give you that much. Yeah. Cold water, baby. That's where it's at. So cool. So you're a walleye guy now. Yep. You could walleye just transcribe everything you just said for the foreword of your book, Walleye and Me, by Hayden Samak, when that comes out. A memoir. Anyway, we've gone on way long enough here. So you're pitting yourself against those walleyes now. We're pitting ourselves against each other. Let's not forget this is a competition. At the end of this dog and pony show and walleye extravaganza, our mentor, colleague, and audio Adonis, Phil Taylor, will declare a winner. And you, sir, have the floor to lead off this week with news.
Okie doke. So, this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about hatchery steelhead because I'm sick of talking about how bad it is for wild steelhead in the Pacific Northwest.
Ooh, okay.
Of course, we are going to talk a little bit about that, too.
Of course you are.
So this is going to be a little bit of a non-traditional fish news story, as I'm going to kind of touch on a couple different stories to paint a bigger picture. The overarching theme of this story comes from the News Motion, who reported on researchers exploring new ways to make hatchery steelhead more like wild fish. Now, we all know that hatchery steelhead, they don't spawn even kind of as well as wild steelhead. Spawning ability, or the ability to reproduce in general, is known as fecundity. Now, that's one term. There's another term, another F word, if you will, and that is fitness. When fisheries biologists use the term fitness, what they're describing is a hatchery fish's ability to survive and thrive in the wild. So, right, fecundity and fitness.
Right.
Speaking of wild, let's talk about the state of wild steelhead. Here are some statistics.
Isn't that what you just said you weren't going to talk about?
I said I was going to touch on it. Here are some statistics as reported by the Vancouver Sun. In 2020, less than 40 steelhead ran up the Chilko River. In the Thompson River, just 203 steelhead were observed returning to spawn. I think that was last year. I'm not sure that was 2020. The Vancouver Sun also reports that 10% of the steelhead population in the Chilcotin River system, and by 10% they mean two fish, they ended up in gill nets.
Oh.
It's very, very not good. And that's like
brutal.
That's mostly interior steelhead. But
so
it makes sense that we're investing in the betterment of these fish hatchery programs, not only to increase angler opportunity, but also as a way to eventually boost the numbers of fish that behave as if they were wild and hopefully increase the population to self-sustaining numbers. So let's talk about the...
I'm going to wait for the end here. I want to hear the conclusion, but I mean, what you just said, like, there's a lot of people listening in the Pacific Northwest who are totally disagreeing with that.
Oh, yeah.
Statement.
I mean, sure. Look, and real quick, like, to touch on that, I understand, and like,
yeah,
I'm of the mind that habitat restoration and like aggressive environmental policy is probably the way to go in order to maintain these wild steelhead stocks. Yeah. And you can look at other examples in wildlife management, like for instance, one of our great success stories in American conservation, right, is the reintroduction of the wild turkey. And when they first tried to reintroduce the wild turkey, they would raise these poults, in captivity, and then they would release them. And what you essentially had there was a put and take program, because those wild turkeys wouldn't really develop populations that could sustain themselves. Like, they weren't reproducing in meaningful ways, and it was just kind of a waste of time and money. Then what they did was they recaptured a lot of wild turkeys in like strongholds, like I think in Alabama, like places like that. And then they repopulated their native range with these captured birds. A couple decades later, we got wild turkeys everywhere. So I don't think that like basically stocking a bunch of steelhead is the answer. But then I also don't think that, raising, I'm not sure it's entirely analogous. Like, just because it didn't work in that instance doesn't mean it won't work in this instance. And you also got to think about the purity of the stocks and the specific strains. And, I don't know, man. I think it's like a discussion to be had. I'm maybe not the one to have a discussion about that. If you know a fisheries biologist in the Pacific Northwest, I talk to him or her. So anyway, all that aside, we're going to try and talk about an instance where these programs aimed at giving hatchery steelhead wild qualities is like kind of being implemented. And so because of that, we're going to talk about the American River in Northern California. Essentially,
right, it's like, for lack of a better way to put it, they're trying to make better hatchery fish.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, right?
Yep.
Okay, so per the Stockton record, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife have already observed over 900 fish, a mix of wild, hatchery-bred, and juvenile fish, entering the hatchery, which is up from just like 300 fish counted at the same time last year. Now they're citing... Wow. Yeah, they're citing higher than average flows as one of the main reasons these fish are having a good year. So earlier we talked about fitness and fecundity. Again, we see reduced fecundity of these hatchery fish because they don't have the same fitness as wild steelhead. Basically, hatchery fish go into the ocean and get their asses kicked. So this returning population of steelhead is a good thing. And the reason that it's a good thing is that the American River Fish Hatchery seems to be experimenting with ways to reduce negative consequences associated with hatchery fish, and I guess it appears to be working. According to the CDFW, that's the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, fisheries biologists at the American River Fish Hatchery are hoping to perpetuate a specific strain of steelhead, and that's the Eel River steelhead, which is it's a larger strain, right? Whereas a lot of these wild fish get up to 8-10 pounds, these ones kind of tend to top out at 15, 16, 17 pounds.
So they can fight off the giant squids and stuff when they're out there.
Yeah, exactly. They're larger and therefore presumably tougher. The American River Fish Hatchery is doing this by selecting fish exclusively of the Eel River strain. Like when they return, they go, okay, that's an Eel River strain, that's an Eel River strain. And they're only spawning returning hatchery origin fish. Right, so they're kind of going, okay, this one went out in the ocean, it came back big and strong, that's probably a good one. So they're working on selection there. So it's an example of ways that we're trying to use the hatchery system, or fisheries biologists are trying to use the hatchery system and put a hand in selecting these fish that are going to have higher levels of fitness and higher levels of fecundity. And hopefully because of that, make a stronger strain of fish that can one day have self-sustaining stocks. So, I mean, is this good news for steelhead on the level of a complete return of a wild run? No. But is it a step in the right direction for hatchery fish looking to create a sustainable population of steelies? Like, maybe. Either way, it's a big year for steelhead in the American River, and no matter how you look at it, that's a good thing for anglers.
It's very interesting, and I appreciate what they're doing, and I feel like no matter how you slice it, you're going to get a different answer from anglers out there on this is good or this is bad. And you know what? I fully understand it. I'm not well-versed in West Coast steel, but I will say, and I think most anglers would agree, wild fish are just cooler. They're sexier. That's always what we want to catch. You love Great Lakes steel. I love Great Lakes steel. Are they fun? Hell yeah. But like, is that as cool as catching a wild? No, it's not. So, man, it's kind of like, is this really maybe sort of the best thing we can hope for is building a better hatchery fish based on fish that are going to the ocean? Maybe. But then if I look at it like if my beloved striped bass all went away, all those wild runs up to Delaware, I mean, everything we have here, if it was just like down to nothing and somebody was like, we can create hatchery fish and maybe it's hard to say like it. I would say yes, it's better than nothing, but it would still never be the same. You're still not fixing like the big problem, but that doesn't mean it's not cool science. Like I said, I appreciate what they're doing.
Right. There comes a point with like any sort of wildlife management, right, where you have to look at what you have and what you can reasonably expect to regain.
Right. Yeah.
In a lot of cases, you're saying, okay, I would rather have wild fish. And I think everybody would agree with you. There is not a single fisheries biologist that would be like, no, we'd rather have hatchery fish.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah. But the question I would pose to them is this. If you could have a strain of wild steelhead, because, you know, like the Eel River steelhead, that's where a lot of these like stocks are coming from. If you could have that strain of steelhead preserved in such a way that like they continued to exist, even if the genesis of that was an artificial hatchery condition, if you don't have nothing anyway, why not have that?
Oh, and I completely agree, and I think that's what I'm saying. It'd be foolish to be like, stop this madness, wild fish. Like, no, like these people are doing some cool stuff, and there is a preservation tactic there.
Yeah, and again, we're not talking about like putting it in. We're talking about the American River here, and if you don't know like the American River, it's in Sacramento. You know what I mean? We're not talking about doing it in like the Babine. Right.
But it could be a model for that if it ever got to that, theoretically.
It could be a model for that.
If it works.
But I think, as with so many tools in conservation, I think it can be tailored to like the fishery in which the biologists are discussing. Like, is that model for the American River going to be the same model that, like, you know, they take to the Fraser? No, of course it's not going to be the same model.
Right. Well, I will say, like, I know we got some steelheaders listening. Write in. Let us know what you think. I'd be happy to read some of those responses, in a show down the road.
Please enter your password. You have one unheard message.
Hayden, where are you? We were supposed to be at my parents' house an hour ago. I'm on my way with the dog. If you're out fishing, we need to have a conversation when you get home because this is getting absolutely ridiculous. Call me when you get this.
End of message. Delete. Press 7. Save. Deleted.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look, that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
So I'll move it over here from fish we're trying to get more of to fish we are completely trying to get rid of. How about that? And I got to say, I was tempted to grab a story for this week with the following headline. Hamas claims it has captured an Israeli spy dolphin equipped with weapons and capable of assassinating its fighters off of Gaza, because the image of the dolphin with the spear gun on its head is just straight Austin Powers.
You know, I have one simple request, and that is to have sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads.
But while it was intriguing, it was just too far off the mark. It was just too far off the mark. Plus, so many of you sent along the catfish story out of Texas. I felt covering it was the right thing to do. So let's go to Texas and learn about an invasive species that's a real pain in the ass and offers zero benefit to anglers. Absolutely none. So we are talking about the suckermouth armoured catfish, otherwise known as plecos in the aquarium trade. And according to the story on Yahoo News, a team of researchers from Texas A&M and Texas State recently pulled 406 suckermouth armoured catfish from the San Marcos River, quote, during a dewatering event at a public park. So scientists are hoping that studying some of the fish collected will help them figure out how best to control them. The story says, originating from the waters of South America, the suckermouth is an aquarium fish that was released into the wild and has grown out of control, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department said. The armored catfish is a long way from home swimming around Texas waterways, but it has thrived anyway to the detriment of the state's natural ecology. So now these fish might be commonly labeled as plecos at the PetSmart. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you had these as a kid. I always called them algae eaters.
Yeah, I had these as a kid. And if you remember, a couple months ago, I told a story about the
fish tank that burned your house down almost?
Yep, the fish tank that almost killed my entire family. And there were plecos swimming around in that thing.
Yep.
Those were always my favorite ones, man.
Oh, see, really? Because I was going to say, a lot of people had these when they were a kid, and the appeal was they were supposed to eat all the green and brown algae in your tanks, which was great because cleaning fish tanks sucks. And when you're a kid, a lot of times your tank just goes to complete hell. It's just disgusting. But I was going to say, other than that, I thought they were the most useless, ugly, boring addition to any tank.
Oh, really?
They don't do anything.
Man, I see. The appeal to me was they kind of looked like Sharky.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I thought they were just like an eyesore, just sucked onto the glass somewhere. They would move overnight once and not again all day. But that's neither here nor there.
I got a question for you real quick.
Yeah.
Did you ever try and catch any of the fish in your fish tank when you were a kid?
No, I never did. And I even had later in life some game fish in the tank. I loved feeding them, but no, I never caught them.
My brother and I did try and catch that pleco once or twice.
Oh, yeah, but I'll bet it was hard, which is kind of going to tie into the rest of this story, because the thing is, they are apparently indestructible.
Yeah.
So according to the piece, and doesn't this sound familiar, snakehead lovers, they can breathe out of water for, quote, at least 20 hours and walk on land. How they would calculate this at roughly 2.3 miles per hour.
No.
One of them, yes, that's what
okay,
News says.
Hold on. For how long? If it can move?
Apparently up to 20 hours. If it can breathe out of water for at least 20 hours and walk 2.3 miles per hour, transfer the two.
I have friends that cannot maintain a 2.3 mile an hour pace.
They can get from Center City to the Philly airport in 13.9 minutes. I don't know. Anyway, one of the most common ways they get moved is by birds. Because plecos are really easy targets, but they are so sharp and hard and spiky that a bird usually drops them pretty quickly. Oh. And assuming they survive the fall, depending on how high up they are, quote, the fish could potentially walk for hours until it finds a body of water.
That's horrifying. That sucks, man.
They can't swim for more than 10 minutes straight, so how they can walk for hours, I don't understand. They're a lazy-ass fish. Now, while these fish are primarily eating algae and plant matter, they do compete with some native species for food. But the story says they've also taken over in parts of Florida, and there are so many in some places they'll actually swarm manatees to eat the algae off their skin. And there can be so many plecos on the manatee that it gets severely stressed out, like mad manatee stress. So that's clearly an issue if you're into manatees.
I got a manatee story to tell you when we're off the air in a minute.
Okay, fair enough. I do too, kind of. Now everybody's going to be curious.
Well, I'm going to be curious.
Mine ends with a cracked transom on a flat skiff. Anyway, so a bigger issue with the catfish than what they eat is actually how they like to burrow in soft banks. And the people in Texas are worried that's going to ramp up bank erosion and like destabilize riverbanks and things more quickly. So, invasives, never good, right? Of course. But this one has absolutely no silver lining. And I'm not surprised this happened because those fish, I don't know about yours, but they eventually get big in your tank. They live forever. So whether it outgrows the tank or you just decide to like go to college and you don't want your tank anymore, like pet stores don't want those things back, right? You can't flush it because it would be like flushing a metal porcupine, right? You can run it over with a truck and it'll be fine. But in the wild, it's not good for bait. It's nothing you can target. It's just pretty worthless. Yeah. So my opinion, ban them. Like, honestly, if they're that much of a problem, we've banned so many other aquarium fish that were much prettier and more interesting. You know what I mean? Like, hashtag stop the pleco. They're a stupid fish anyway. So there you go.
It really is like an interesting thing. It's weird to think that when you're talking about buying like mammalian creatures or like a serval cat or something like that.
Spider monkey.
Yeah. There's so much red tape. And the likelihood of those things finding each other in the wild, even if you were to release them, is not particularly high up there. Yet you can buy like all sorts of like invasive fish, and you can buy breeding populations basically of invasive fish.
Yep.
That could easily find their way into a waterway. And like that's like still totally okay.
Because it's fish, dude. It's underwater. Only certain people care. People in the neighborhood would be worried about a couple loose spider monkeys. They don't give a shit that there's armored catfish in the pond out back. That's just the reality. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
But anyway, there you go. Everybody who wrote in, thank you for that one. Armored catfish. Done and done. Let's go to Phil. What does he want swimming in his river? Hatchery, steelhead, or plecos? And after we hear from Phil, we're actually going to hit end of the line. And this segment is kind of the antithesis of an article I published this week on the Meat Eater site, 4 misconceptions about mousing for trout. How about that? So give that a read. And if you decide mousing for trout sounds like too much work, forget that article and pay even closer attention to the forthcoming end of the line segment.
Hey, Hayden, you're the winner this week. I just can't help but feel bad for these hatchery steelhead. I mean, that would be kind of like if a human were to spend most of their formative years playing trombone and video games, and then eventually down the road, maybe they got a job in an office full of self-sustaining hunters and outdoors people. I mean, can you imagine what that would do to this person's self-esteem?
Fishy, 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 fishy!
Well, that's not loud enough, Bert.
If you listen to my last end of the line on Swiss Wings, you know I have a soft spot for fishing-related nostalgia. So it should come as no surprise that we're going to walk down those familiar back roads again now, with a bait I believe every angler has had an experience with at one point or another. I think everyone knows the smell, that musty, sweet, funky odor emanating from pretty much every tackle box. It just smells like fishing. I also think that everyone who has used this particular item has had the shared experience where after a day on the water, you walk in and a loved one gives you a kind of bemused look, then gets closer and says, "You have glitter on your face." Of course, I'm talking about Power Bait. Now, Power Bait is actually the brand name for a bunch of Berkley soft plastic creations, but the form I'm talking about is known as Power Bait Dough. Before we get into Power Bait, let's clarify something. Berkley has been around for a while. The company was founded in 1937 by a young man named Berkley Bedell, selling flies in Spirit Lake, Iowa. Let's fast forward. It's the mid-'80s, and Berkley has since been taken over by Berkley Bedell's son, Tom. Looking out for the next big thing, Tom Bedell becomes focused on attractants and enlists the help of Dr. Herman Clearcoper, a fisheries biologist from Texas A&M who invents Strike, Berkeley's first scent product. Strike, however, had a major flaw. It was a topical scent product and washed off baits easily. Bedell knew he needed to develop a longer-lasting attractant and puts chemist John Prochnow and fisheries biologist Dr. Keith Jones up to the task. Through meticulous research over the span of 3 years, Prochnow and Jones began to develop what would become power bait by reverse engineering natural prey, breaking that prey down into basic molecular components and amino acids. To test the palatability of these individual elements, they soaked cotton balls in their formulas and fed them to fish in their lab. They soon discovered that no single element was having the effect that they wanted, so they began testing combinations of natural and synthetic compounds. These combinations proved to be more effective, and they eventually landed on an attractant formula we know today as power bait. Power bait comes in many forms, notably it's integrated into Berkeley soft plastics, but the form I'm most familiar with is the power bait dough. As any stocker fisherman knows, those pellet heads just can't seem to resist that scent-infused Play-Doh floating tantalizingly just off the bottom. I still remember fishing Salkin Creek with my grandpa, and him carefully showing me how to knead little corn kernel-sized balls of the stuff, then how to carefully mold it around my hook. An interesting note about Berkeley power bait dough. Many folks seem to think it's toxic, and that's not the case. The dough itself is made of a heat-treated mixture of PVC powder and oil resin and is completely digestible, although it is very obviously not for human consumption. So please leave the eating to the fish. If you've got something on the end of your line that you think belongs on the end of our line, feel free to write into bent@themeateater.com with your suggestions. And if you got a good story about power bait, send that in too.
You know what, man? I vividly remember the very first time I ever used power bait for trout. Like, I remember hanging out at my grandparents' house the night before opening day of the trout season in Jersey, and my grandfather, he'd just gotten back from the bait shop, and he picked up our night crawlers and mealies and salmon eggs, and he busted out this jar of power bait and said something like, here's some new shit the guy was saying will catch more trout than anything, like super skeptical. Like, it was almost like an ad on sale, like the guy got him.
Right,
like, here,
right.
sir, you should try this,
Right, how'd it work?
I honestly don't recall if that OG bottle of orange PB caught trout or not on opening day, but it must have, because, like, my grandfather was never without it again. You know what I mean? Like, from there on out, he had power bait, and I even think he kind of phased out salmon eggs in favor of it. So it definitely caught fish. I just don't remember if it did the first time out,
Yeah. Like, the thing that, I mentioned this in the thing, but the thing that I think about when I think of power bait is, like, it was almost like every person used power bait to try and, like, seam seal the inside of pockets in their, like, old school fishing vests. You know what I mean? Like, everything, it would be like, it just had a way of, like, crusting in there, and, like, I just feel like every, like, creel
it'd
or,
be in your zippers. Yeah, it'd be everywhere. Yeah, because you would get it on your fingers and then, like, wipe it here, and then it would lock into the fabric
I feel like
and
I can
stay
smell
crusty.
it. I feel like I can smell it right now.
Exactly.
But whatever gets your limit, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Well, it's perfect that you bring up trout fishing as a little kid, because we've got a question in the Bent Helpline this week that speaks to any parents or grandparents out there that have a little limit catching machines like young Joe used to be.
What are you laughing at, Martini? You're not an idiot? Huh? You're not a damn loony now, boy. You're a fisherman.
What's your emergency?
All right. So today on the Bent Helpline, we have a question from Evan Taylor, who writes, "Dear Bent, let's say I am fishing in a state where a human does not need a fishing license until they are 14. That's an interesting way to say it, kid.
It's a very interesting way to put it. Yeah.
And let's say, I like how this is all, like, framed in a hypothetical. And let's say the daily limit for bluegill in said state is 25, for easy math, per day. If I have my kids who are 7 and 5 out fishing, does that mean my cooler could theoretically have 75 bluegill in it? Or is the limit 25 because I am the only one who paid for a license? Now, of course, anyone who has fished with kids know you are never going to limit with them along. But just for shits.
Yep.
Signed, Evan Taylor.
You got any thoughts on that? Because I do.
You know what, man? I don't have kids. This is something that has never come up for me. I'm going to let you deal with this one entirely. I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Yeah, and dear God, I hope I'm not giving out wrong information here, but my understanding has always been that that basically legal is legal. In other words, if you don't need a license within your state till you're 14, I think in some states it's 15, maybe 13. It varies. But point being, if you are not of legal age for a license, you are still legal in the state's eyes to be out fishing. So just thinking back to when I was growing up and, fishing with my dad, like on opening day of trout, I would have my stringer and he would have his stringer. You know what I mean? I think theoretically, now where it gets gray is I've seen instances where, the kids aren't really fishing too hard, but dad puts his 12 on the stringer. That's shitty. Like that's sort of also that, gets into that argument of like, when you're saltwater fishing, is it cool for the captain to keep his limit for the day too? If you want to bring home more, whatever, fluke or salmon on the Great Lakes. But I think, if your aim is true and your heart is pure, okay, and you really want your 75 bluegills or whatever, and your kids are legit catching them, legally, I think absolutely your child is legal to fish, and pretty sure the same limits would apply there.
Yeah. Now, what if you were hooking the fish and the kids were reeling them in? And I have a follow-up question to this.
Yeah, but see, now you're getting into semantics. Like, that's the problem with this. Like,
is it though? Well, let me ask you this. Here's the follow-up. What is the difference between that and being on a charter fishing where the first mate is the one hooking all the fish and you're just reeling them in and grip and grinning with them?
What is the difference?
Yeah, plenty of people do that and keep their fish, right?
Sure they do. But again, man, like, so in that scenario, if you're out on a charter boat, right? Mm-hmm. And first of all, if I'm on a charter boat where the mate is hooking the fish and handing me a rod,
you, man, not you.
That is like a pet peeve of mine.
Well, yeah.
I will not take a rod. I will not be handed a rod with the fish already on it. I hate that. Oh God, I hate that. Right? I hate that.
Yeah.
But I would say, if you're newbies, rookies, you booked a charter somewhere, and the mate's setting the hook on the troll or whatever it may be it doesn't matter, on the bottom, and he's handing you the rod and you're okay with that? Like, that doesn't bother you? As long as you're only taking your limit as the angler, then what's the difference? You know what I'm saying?
Right. But what I'm comparing that to is like the kid on opening day where his dad is hooking the trout and like letting him reel the trout in. Now, you kind of implied that you didn't think like maybe that was so cool.
No. You're misunderstanding completely. What I'm saying is, no, you are misunderstanding what I'm saying.
No. Hey, man.
What I'm saying is I think there's a little more leeway in taking your kid fishing and your kid's standing there fishing with you in the water, wading, sitting in the lawn chair, whatever. Maybe he's too little, so you hook one and hand him the rod. This is something I never have to worry about because I don't care about keeping a limit right now of anything that my young kids would catch.
Right.
Like, we're not doing that, right? So that's one thing. What I'm saying is, you go fishing, you bring your kid. Your kid's off running around in the woods or looking for fairies flipping rocks and completely unengaged in what you're doing, but you're going to keep his or her 6 trout too.
Right.
You're using them as a body so that if somebody flagged you, you'd be like, well, I caught these 6 and little Timmy here caught the other 6.
Mm-hmm.
But it's ultimately getting in the weeds.
Yeah.
Right?
It's about effort. If you put in the effort, then it's like whatever. If you're using them as like a justification to keep, X amount of fish without the expectation that they're going to be actively involved in catching said fish,
Right.
then that's what you don't like.
Yeah, I mean, all Evan's question really spoke to more was the legality of it. Can I keep that a limit,
right?
Against my 2 kids? I hope Evan's not like, round up all the kids in the neighborhood. I'm taking them all fishing. I don't know what the guy's MO is, right? We don't read minds. I'm sure that's not it, Evan. I'm messing with you. It's a good question, you know?
Yeah. And if he's a listener to Ben, I'm sure that he is just an upstanding member of society. Or he could be a degenerate angler. Who knows?
He could be a degenerate angler. You don't know. But listen, I just to sort of cover our asses, maybe this varies in different states. I'm not sure. But I mean, I hold licenses in multiple states every year for freshwater. Grew up traveling to fish and fished all over. I've never heard of such a thing where, a legal unlicensed angler, meaning a little kid,
couldn't keep fish.
Couldn't keep their fish or keep their limit.
Yeah,
there's no rules there.
That sounds right. Well, anyway, that's a great question, Evan. Thank you very much for sending it in to Bent. If you have questions yourself, you can send them to either Joe on his Instagram. You can send them to me on my Instagram. You can send them into the Bent inbox at bent@themeateater.com. Send your question via text, send in a voice memo. We like those, and you could hear yourself on
Who are you
air.
texting him to? My number. Did you give out your number?
What?
Who did you text them to? You said send them in via text. Did you give out your number publicly?
Yeah, my number
555.
I meant in a text-based format. Yeah, 555. Yeah, anyhow, look, send your questions in, and we'll do our best to answer them on the Bent helpline.
So that's it for this week. Remember, if you're taking the kids out with the power bait looking for your mako limit, if it roars, set it free. Also, please keep those sale bin items, awkward photos, helpline questions, bar nominations, and all that good stuff coming to bent@themeateater.com.
Yeah, and keep using those Bent Podcast and Degenerate Angler hashtags. And for the love of God, please stop suggesting quizzes for me.
No. Keep suggesting them. What other movies should we quiz Hayden on? Perfect Storm? Mighty Ducks?
Finding
I'm open
Nemo?
to everything. Yeah, I'm open to everything except Half Baked because that would just be too easy.
Hey.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls. I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.